We are live. I am here with Dan, the man, the black and blue collared reader, who hasn't joined us for a little while. It's good to see you, Dan.
Thank you.
And
Yeah. It's been a minute.
yeah, and whoever's in the comments, people are apparently watching. So let us know in the comments who you are. It's probably the regular crew. I'm guessing Jerome's here, maybe Rogue's here,
Hey,
maybe
Jerome,
Cox
Rogue.
is here. Oh, I don't know that they're here yet.
Scott.
I'm not sure yet, but that's usually what we get.
We'll see. Mhm.
We were just talking, Dan and I were just talking beforehand about well, first of all, it's apparently the sports bowl.
The Sports Bowl is today between the Kansas City Nobodies and the San Francisco 49ers. And we're going to root for the 49ers today, I think,
Okay.
because I had Kansas City beat my team last year in the Sports Bowl. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, over here, it's actually strange. Germans, there are Germans who are strangely excited about American football. Like if you say football over here, what they mean is soccer, right?
Soccer, yeah.
And
Hmm.
but apparently American football is kind of a niche sport thing over here.
Yeah,
There are
so
German
it's
teams,
actually
and people subscribe to particular streaming services just so they can have access to the Super Bowl, and that kind of thing.
so that happens over here with your football
Right.
because soccer really I would believe it was in the 90s when Alexei Lalas, you probably don't know this person, but they USA did really well in the Olympics in like the 90s, and all of a sudden soccer, football blew up here,
Right.
and all of a sudden there were teams everywhere, and now we actually have a major league soccer teams in Philadelphia,
Right.
and things like that. But yeah, the NFL has brought live games scheduled in Germany, and that has
Right.
happened last year actually. Hmm.
Yeah, I remember. I remember. So Jerome is here because he has no life. Welcome to my life, Jerome.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm with you.
Esme's just saying hi. Hello, Esme.
Yes, man.
Daniel is here. Daniel's always here. Daniel is a loyal Sunday pub denizen. Jerome, to be honest, Jerome, I kind of have the same attitude about sports. Like there is no sport I'm actually personally really interested in, but I can teach you a German word. It's Mitfreude. Mitfreude is gaining joy out of someone else's joy. And I can have Mitfreude for Dan's interest in sports.
Thank
Talise
you.
is here, Thornall's here, also loyal Sunday pubbers. Evie's here, but she's not on the screen. What's wrong with you, Evie? Why are you not gracing us with your visual and auditory presence? Morten
She's
Jurgensen is here. I just love. I lived in Denmark for a while, so whenever I see an O with a line through it, I get nostalgic. Um, yeah, we can all relate more deeply to Jerome than we'd like to admit. I assume you're referring to him having no life and not his attitude towards sports, but maybe both. Yeah. Um, Soccer is a commie plot, apparently. Okay, I wasn't aware. Maybe that's
ah.
because I'm a commie.
No, we're bringing players over, and they could be spies. You don't know.
It's true.
You know
It's
what I mean?
absolutely
We
true.
started a national soccer league. What better way to get people in? You know what I mean?
Exactly, and then shows like Ted Lasso,
Oh,
totally commie.
one of the best shows lately, in my
I
opinion. One of the
love
best
that show.
shows.
I love that show. And I mean,
It's-
and I am zero interested in sports ball. Um,
yeah, it didn't
but I
matter.
loved
Mhm.
no, because that show's not about the sports. It's about the
The
people
writing was that good.
and the
Mhm.
relationships and
Yes.
Esme, Schadenfreude. Yeah, Schadenfreude is not the same thing. it's kind of, it's not exactly the opposite thing, but it's kind of an opposite thing. Schadenfreude is getting joy out of someone else's suffering. It's literally like if you literally translate it, Schaden and Freude are damage and joy. So it's getting joy out of someone else's misfortune or suffering.
All of our favorite bad guys are that.
Yeah, generally it's a very bad guy trait, and I'm not so much into Schadenfreude, but I am into Mitfreude. Yes, Morten is Danish. I knew you were Danish. It's fucking obvious, Morten. What else are you going to be with an O with a line through it in your name? Danish have the best hot dogs. Yes, they do, but strangely enough, not the best Danishes.
I like that.
They really don't. Germans are the best bakers I've found anywhere. Like, and any good German bakery is just a wonderland of delicious treats. But yeah,
you guys are all lucky over there in Europe. Like, you can go take a day and go somewhere for the food.
Hi, Kat.
I'm just stuck in America where we Americanize everything and basically ruin it.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things about America. I always say that America is the most beautiful country in the world, if only it wasn't full of Americans.
Yeah, maybe. Mm-hmm.
I love the landscape. That's pretty much my favorite thing.
The Western landscape.
Especially the Western land. Like the
best.
Southwest is insane.
Unbelievable, gorgeous. All the way up those Rocky Mountains is beautiful into Wyoming and stuff.
Absolutely. Hi, Kat. How you doing?
Tired.
You too. I have an exciting old man life. I had a nap this afternoon.
I did too.
Okay, so you're also an old man.
I wish I could nap. I wish I can't nap. It's just physically impossible.
Give yourself permission to nap, Dan.
I think there's I need to like meditate on a nap. You know what I mean? There would be 45 minutes I would have to meditate to be able to nap in the middle of the day.
Or maybe you just need to have an empty house.
That would help. Yeah, that does. And dogs included. Like dogs have to go. Dogs are the most annoying.
I have a cat, and that's actually what woke me up this afternoon.
Fitz is a rambunctious one, man. Every time you're on video, I see him running around. I'm like, he's definitely made himself at home. She's made herself at home for sure.
She's like, don't be fooled by her size, right? She's a kitten. She is really big. She weighs 5 kilos, but she's a kitten. She's a year and a half old, and when she's happy to see me or really wants attention, she headbutts me really hard. And I woke up because I had fallen asleep on the sofa. I had kind of rolled over at some point and my arm was sticking off the sofa and hanging down. And I woke up because she was headbutting my hand so hard that it was hurting my wrist here, like because it was bending back the wrong way. She was like, bang, bang, headbutting me. But
that's such a cat thing to do.
It's an extremely cat thing to do. It's like, bang, I want attention. Bang. Yeah. Usa is here as well. We've got our Scandinavian contingent this evening. Daniel just got a new dog. What kind of new dog did you get, Daniel?
Yeah,
I can relate about
him or her.
I can definitely relate to the losing sleep. Because January, I said it in my January wrap-up video. Oh my God, Fitz was waking me up for a while at 5 a.m, no matter what I did. And I even tried going to bed really late so that maybe that would mean that from when I went to bed, we would like sleep for a certain amount of time. Nope, woke me up at 5. I tried feeding her a lot at a normal dinner hour and then going to bed maybe even early. Nope, she woke me up at 5. I don't know why, and eventually it just stopped, and I don't know why. Yeah.
I've kicked my dogs out of my bed, and now they're letting me know how pissed they are because they used to be able to sleep with me and my one dog slept down and the other dog slept in the bed, but midnight the other dog would jump into the bed and like get into the covers, and I'm just too old for that. I need good sleep, and I've taken them out of the room now for about a month, and they're letting me know how pissed they are by pissing on things when I wake up in the morning. So
Awesome.
they got some training to do. I got to work with them here.
Yeah. Yeah, they work on a totally different level. They have very, very different concepts about how things are or should be. Evie.
Hi, Vivi.
So does anyone other than Daniel know what a Catahoula leopard dog is?
I do.
Okay, I've never heard of a Catahoula leopard dog. I'm gonna have to.
It's
Google
a
them.
breed of, well, it's obviously a breed of dog, but it kind of, so
Oh.
Max actually gets confused. They're like, is he a Catahoula leopard dog? And I'm like, no. It's basically a mutt dog from the southern United States that got bred and that it has this distinct color, and it's like ish merle-ish, but spotted at the same time.
Yeah, they look kind of like any kind of long-legged, long-eared hunting dog. But I mean, in the form, at least the picture I'm looking at right now. But they have, it's really weird. They have like these golden brown legs, but then gray coat with spots.
I think I know what dogs you're talking about.
Very odd.
Yeah.
But kind of pretty in a strange way. It's cool. Why is my mouse? Yeah, exactly. That's the picture I was just looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty dog.
Why is my mouse? It's like disconnecting and then reconnecting, and it's
Charge your
annoying.
mouse, Matt.
I just put in new batteries yesterday. It's not a charging problem. I don't know what it is, but it's not.
Maybe somebody was playing with your mouse all night while you were sleeping.
Could also be. Could also be. Yeah, that would not surprise me at all. Yeah, Chadia says that's how she wakes up every day, like a car banging against her head. Yeah. Now, when in bed, Fitz has this really cute but extremely annoying at 5 a.m. thing, where she'll jump up on the bed and then sit down basically next to my head and go, over and over and over again, and just like bop, bop, bop. And if I don't pay attention to her quickly enough, then it's the same thing, but with claws, just a little bit, like scrape, scrape, just a little bit.
Just think if she had to escalate again, how bad that would be.
Yes. Yeah. No, are you saying I should be thankful? Anitha's here. Hello, Anitha.
Hi, Anitha.
Hello.
Dan, I know that you guys were talking about sports earlier, but are you, since Philly is not obviously in it, are you rooting for the Chiefs since it's a Kelsey thing?
No. So I am rooting for Patrick Mahomes not to win another Super Bowl.
You sound like my husband.
Yeah, I'm just rooting. You know what? I'd like to see San Francisco win because Christian McCaffrey is just an exceptional player who's out who goes out there, does his job every day. So, yeah, the San Francisco's who I'm going for.
I have to highlight Thornall's comment. He once said, I posted a photo on the Discord of Fitz, and he said, "Wow, that's like a feline incarnation of Sauron. So, because yeah,
She does look a little evil. In
she
some of
can
those
have an evil
photos,
look. Yeah,
she
yeah,
does have that, that death stare kind of thing.
yeah. I admit that.
Which is every cat, I feel like, though. So
Yeah,
Yes,
generally.
that's true. Hmm.
Just for everyone to see what
But
we're talking about.
Fitz has got a perfect evil face. Like
Yeah,
if we were doing bad guy cats, that is a perfect face for a bad guy cat. In
yeah,
like a Pixar, type of thing.
yeah. Absolutely. She's got an almost satirical, cartoony, evil cat
Yes,
face.
very.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Ron's here. Hello. If you see my camera moving around, it's because it's part of my monitor, and Fitz is currently bashing her head on the edge of my monitor. So my monitor keeps bumping around.
Fitz is
Yeah,
great.
not evil, leonine. Good word. Yeah, yeah, she is
Hold
pretty
on.
leonine. That ruff around her neck. I've been thinking I probably need to wash her for the first time sometime
Ooh, good
soon.
luck.
Um,
Let her
Gen-
wash herself.
yeah,
I don't. I was gonna
generally
say
I
I
let.
don't know. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Generally,
I was
you.
just gonna say I don't know if I should admit this, but I have never given George a bath since she was a kitten.
Yeah.
Me as well. They clean
You've never given
themselves
yourself a
constantly.
bath?
Yeah, and they won't let me near them.
Oh, I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about yourself, and I'm like, whoa, man.
No,
So-
yeah, I totally. That's how I do it. I haven't
Since
taken
Dan
a
was a
shower
kitten,
since
he
I was a
hasn't taken a
kitten.
shower. Yeah.
I still. That's how I clean myself, and it's worked. I mean, people, don't tell me to leave when I show up, which is cool.
Fitz, what the fuck?
But yeah, I haven't washed my cats at all.
It almost seems like maybe it's because of the ruff around the neck, because that's where it becomes really noticeable that she can't
Tangled,
wash
yes.
the back half of her neck, because there's really fluffy long hair there and it starts sort of sticking together and whatever. I brushed her the other day, and I got enough fur out of it to create a new kitten. I had like a fur
Keep it
ball.
for a pillow.
Yeah.
I mean, keep building it up for a
Oh
little
my
and keep
God.
stuffing it in something. I'm telling you, it's going to be the best pillow ever.
That's true. That's true. She
Or-
has very soft and fluffy
Since
fur.
I know you have an outdoor deck, if you have like a bird feeder, if you have birds around, put the cat fur out for birds to use as a nest.
Uh-huh. I do not have a
good.
bird feeder. I have squirrels. And if you're American, I assume that you have a picture in your head of what a squirrel looks like, which is wrong, because squirrels in Germany are orange. They're not
Orange?
gray. Yes, they are orange. Look like the color of an orange cat, basically, or a bit darker orange than an typical orange cat. And I have orange squirrels mostly on my balcony. Yeah, Maine Coons. Yeah, exactly. Maine Coons get that look. Yeah, they have. It's technically, Daniel, it's the slightly larger, longer than average muzzle, but they also have totally different musculature in their faces. They have much more jaw musculature, which is a lot of what makes them look so maybe aggressive or something, is that they look like they're going to bite you because they have better muscles for biting than most house cats do. Yeah. Like the squirrels in Sword in the Stone. Yeah, exactly. Not gray like the ones I grew up with in America. So shall we maybe sprint?
I was gonna ask what you guys were all reading.
I'm
Tangentially related to that.
done with the story, but I had completely forgotten. I mean, this is like the 8th or 9th time that I reread Dune. I mean, I'm wearing a Dune t-shirt. And I had forgotten that it's very Tolkien-esque. So after the story's finished, there's still like this much of the book, I don't know, like 50 or 60 pages, that is appendices, which is just like world building outside of the story. Raf is here.
Cheers.
Good evening, Raf.
How are you guys doing so far?
Raf and a well-timed beer plop.
It's the one thing I can do.
That was very well timed.
I did, in fact. I think like the video I put up today has the most gushing beer pop I've ever done.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it basically sprayed my entire face.
Oh.
And yes, we're still talking beer, not porn. Trust me.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know.
Vacation.
I totally missed a perfect opportunity to say that's what she said. Damn. Yeah.
Well, that's what she said. So
Yeah.
or he
Exactly.
should. He
Someone's
said.
done it.
Yeah.
Morten Jurgensen just finished Caroline. I am also reading Neil Gaiman Fragile Things, because Tori and I agreed that we're going to read the first book of Lenkmar, the first Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser book by Fritz Leiber, starting tomorrow. And so this weekend I said, I basically finished Dune and I don't want to start anything new that's substantial. So I have a stack of short story collections and anthologies on my desk.
Thank you for correcting yourself, by the way. Yeah.
I didn't correct myself. I
Well,
said
from your
both.
previous video, because you're
But
saying
yes,
collection
thank
and
you for correcting me in the first place. I learned something,
Yeah,
which is always nice.
I did actually start on the audiobook of The Bloodstones by Tori last night on the train.
Ah, cool. What do you think so far?
It's well written. Andrew does an incredibly good job at narrating it. But it was also a night train, and I was slightly inebriated, so I have very little opinions beyond that for like the first three chapters. I've only read like the first three chapters so far. So
Yeah, I enjoyed the book. I thought it was quite well. I thought it was very well done. Actually,
so far it's really well written. Like the actual like the way she writes stuff is really well done. That's what I have to say so far.
Even trying to be as objective as possible, and even trying to forget that Tori is one of my better friends on BookTube and one of my favorite people on BookTube. I thought it was really well done. I mean, It's not her first book, but it's her first book I've read, and I really enjoyed it. And she just asked me if I want to be one of her sort of beta reader discusser people, and I'm like, I would love to help you with it, and I will, but you should know that I am sacrificing all of the not knowing what's going on in the story until I read it, which is a big deal because I have a lot of questions and I don't just want them answered. I want the story to answer them.
Yes.
So I'm gonna know all of the things before I actually read the next book, probably.
Yeah. I don't know if that's one of the things I've never been asked to be a beta reader. Maybe people are afraid of me, which makes sense. But I don't know if I can do that because I'm fairly analytical when it comes to reading stuff, but I'm also pretty harsh sometimes, I guess. So I don't know if I could do that, especially for someone I do know, right? If it was like anonymized thing, so someone sends me stuff and I don't know the person because I don't know who's writing it, that I could probably do, but like beta reading something for someone I consider a friend, I could not do that. I would still read it, but I don't think I'd be able to give like any form of feedback that actually works.
I think it can work really well between me and Tori because I already gave her a pretty in-depth and honest critique of the book after I read it. I mean, just between us, and I know she can take it, at least the way I say it. But yeah, I mean, the main thing is the whole idea of it for me is just it's not just reviewing it. It's like I want her next book to be even better, you know, and that would be the whole reason to even start discussing it. Daniel says the main thing that stands out for me about Bloodstones is how it never feels like it's all set up, even though it really is. You're always engaged with whatever's going on at the moment. Yeah, it didn't feel. Sometimes books feel like setup. You know, you know that they're just laying bricks, but they haven't built the wall yet. You know, and it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, I think the way Tori does it is very smooth. You know, providing these little world building aspects within the scene, and it is set up, but the way I felt the way it was done just flowed, and didn't feel like there were info dumps or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you were gradually learning not only what's going on in the scene, you were gradually learning about the world as a whole, and I just enjoy how it was done. I did think it was a bit of a slow start, but with an epic fantasy, I just think that's to be expected. And I thought, you know, Tori really, she was meticulous in providing you with the scene and with the atmosphere and the setting, that it did take a while to build up. And but I thought the ending was fantastic twist that I didn't see coming, and I thought I should have, but I didn't see it.
She did a really good job with that. I won't get into details about it because it's very spoilery. But there is a twist at the end that I also was like, I totally should have seen that.
Yeah, and I didn't because of the way she played it out. I thought it was done very, very well.
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing is is it possible to write epic fantasy today and start with a young boy watching an execution, or is that something that after Game of Thrones we've basically done and should no longer do?
Was the first scene an execution in Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Oh, no.
And not the first scene. The first chapter is a Bran chapter, and it starts with Bran watching.
It is okay.
Yeah,
it's
Bran.
The prologue is the part where you see the guy who gets killed.
The prologue. But isn't that what this was? Was this the prologue? Or was that first chapter?
Well,
it was the first chapter. The book, the Bloodstones, basically begins with an execution and three boys watching it, and one of them.
Okay,
I'm just gonna be a troll because I haven't read Bloodstones, and it's been a while since I've read Game of Thrones. But rather than us not being allowed to start with an execution scene, never start with a Bran character. Bran sucks. So
yeah, well, that's a different thing. I may agree with you, but it's been. Oh God!
I know. I'm just trolling. I don't actually.
Here's the thing. It's I may agree. I think I really didn't like Bran as a character when I last read all of these books, and I reread the first four when the fifth came out, and that's the last time I read. And that's over a decade ago.
I think it's important to point out though that there are two different brands. Bran the Kid, I actually liked quite a bit. Bran the Cripple, Bran the eventual three-eyed raven, blah blah blah, is annoying and boring as fuck.
See, that's
but Bran the Kid at the beginning, I like.
He's just a kid,
child perspective, and his joy in climbing around the castle and all.
Yeah, that world building scene was very of Winterfell when he is doing that and climbing and kind of going against his parents by doing that. I thought that scene was amazing.
I thought the whole everything with Bran as a kid, as a normal climbing around the place kid, I thought that was pretty cool. But
he feels real as a kid. I'm like, when I was, 9 years old, I can see myself thinking in the same way that Bran does in a lot of ways. And that's really good. And that's sort of like the thing where I was like, Bran the cripple at the end of the day.
The broken.
I have, see, here's the thing. If I ever go and reread, let's put it this way. Once Winds of Winter comes out, I will reread the whole thing again.
Yeah.
And I've read, I've reread. I've read Game of Thrones. I read Song
I
of
mean,
Ice and Fire so many times.
you're starting with the assumption, Jeff, that Winds of Winter will actually come out.
I think it will come out. I'm an optimist. I think it will come out somewhere. I think George R. Martin will finish writing it in 2025, and it will probably come out in 2026. That's my
To soften my disappointment, I have decided that A Song of Ice and Fire will never be finished. It just won't.
I think most
ever.
people have. Mhm.
And I've just given up on like even hoping or anything like that. So when it does come out, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But Winds of Winter coming out also doesn't finish the series, so I may be right either way. You know,
I think Winds of Winter will come out. I do believe that George R. Martin is actually writing the thing. I think he's struggling. He's probably moved on as a human. I mean, the fact that we've waited for Winds of Winter George R. Martin has taken longer writing Winds of Winter than Stephen Erickson took publishing the entirety of the Malazan Book of the Fall.
yeah.
Which is
I think Stephen Erickson knew where he was going, and I think Martin was just didn't know his ending before he started. And it kind of he has so many lines, these plot lines going on, and needs to figure out how to cohesively end this story. And I don't think he knew that
Also,
from the beginning.
I imagine, I mean, as a person who struggles with depression myself, and I know Georgie has that problem as well. I imagine being in that headspace, being a person with that kind of mind and that kind of mental health, and then having the entire fucking world waiting for you to do something that has to be awesome.
Yeah, it's tough.
Right. It can't just be okay. It can't just be good. It has to be awesome. It has to blow people away.
And he's already seen the repercussions from the TV show.
Yeah.
So compile that with the pressure that people want him to write this amazing
insane
story.
amount of pressure. It's just that would kill me.
I think that's part of the problem is exactly that. Like Stephen Erickson, from what he knew where the story was going. Also, I mean, he started writing Guardians of the Moon in the early 90s. It took like a decade for that stuff to be. There's a lot of stuff Stephen Erickson already had planned out and worked out, and he just got that stuff published one after the other. George R. Martin published A Game of Thrones in 1995, 1996, one of those. And the first 3 books came out fairly rapidly, and then the thing blew up and stuff slowed down. And I think part of that is exactly because he did not plan out too much. He may have like an image of like how the whole thing ends and stuff like that. But between there's so much stuff he did not have planned out because he was just writing books one after the other. And he'd been a successful, semi-successful author for like 20 years at that point. So he's like, I'll just write another book and no one will talk about it. And I'll write another book and no one will talk about it. And then the whole thing kind of exploded. And I think that had a huge impact. And
can I just take a moment to go, woohoo! Brian Bell is reading Gardens of the Moon. I am so happy for you, Brian, but do not do a Josh. Josh from Red Fury Books terribly, terribly disappointed me. And got to Dead House Gates and was like, it's all right.
Yeah, he DNF'd Memories of Ice, right?
Yeah,
Josh. Mm-hmm.
I mean, not completely
That's
DNF.
right.
He went to great lengths to say, "I'm putting it down for now."
Okay, that's where you wanted him. That's where you like it to be at right now, right? He didn't DNF. You're going to convince him to go back to it.
He's been talking about it recently himself. That he actually wants to like maybe pick it up and continue. And maybe it was mood. Josh from Red Fury Books reading Malazan.
I wasn't paying attention for a second. I'm like, who are you talking about? Who's the Malazan heretic?
How are you liking it, Brian? I saw some comments, I think, on maybe either my recent video or it was on Twitter or something, and it sounded kind of lukewarm, to be honest. Not as excited as I would hope, but People read.
I gotta
what they-
say, there are characters in Gardens of the Moon that are still branded in my. I mean, there's just so many good characters.
Fucking
yeah.
Tattersale. Best character of
Dude.
Gardens of the Moon.
Hairlock. I mean, what Hairlock's arc is just bonkers. Come on.
Gardens
Just-
is also
just-
where
just
we meet
for-
Tool for the first time.
Just to remind me, a Hairlock is the wizard
Puppet.
that got turned into a puppet, right?
The wizard that gets
Yes.
turned into a psychotic
Yup.
puppet. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I like
Who is-
Tattersale a lot.
Tattersale was my girl. I like Tattersale too, man. Her story was hit me, man.
The fat
And,
lady with the spells wants to talk.
Well,
Which is
the
such a
other
good line.
the young guy.
Sorry,
Genos Paran
Crocus.
Ganis.
or Crocus. Yeah.
If you say young guy, if you mean the thief that guy, then it's Crocus. If you mean
Yes,
the
that guy. That
yeah,
guy.
Crocus.
Yeah.
What an
I like
annoying bastard, which is a good thing because 17-year-old boys are annoying bastards, the lot of them. I
Especially a
say as a
17-year-old
former
boy
17-year-old boy.
who inherently thinks that they can do anything.
Yeah.
And get anything they want.
It's annoying, but it's so real. I've been there. I've done that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Team Krupp
Wait, so you
over
guys wanna
here,
read?
man.
Crop.
Fucking crap.
I can't read. I didn't know if this was going to be a sprint, so I'd probably have to get off and things like that. But I was just going to hang out for an hour.
Oh, okay.
But
In that case, never mind.
Yeah, we can sprint when Dan has to go sports ball.
Sports ball.
Yeah.
yeah, I got like 20 minutes, and then I was going to
Yeah, that's
hop off, and
Yeah.
I was hoping to hear what everybody was reading and what they're thinking of it.
Mormons.
I-
What you got there?
I'm
Way too
reading
much.
The Gate to Women's Country by Sherry S. Tepper.
Oh, sure,
Everyone
Kipper.
is reading that at the moment.
All right,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about it, Evie. What's it
So-
about?
So a bunch of people, the Kingsguard tier on Jimmy's Discord. This is our book for this.
Now
book
that
club.
explains why Katya is reading it. Just read it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it's a sci-fi, but like it says sci-fi masterworks, like, but it feels I don't know. It's weird. But it's basically a battle of the sexes type thing, where this society is just made up of women, and this happens in the first chapter, so I don't think it's that much of a spoiler. If a woman has a son, which they haven't gotten into, like how they go about like procreating or whatever, since it's a society full of women, the child, the if she has a son, the child stays with her until he's 5, and then he has to go to the warriors' country, which
Yeah.
is a bunch of men.
It's
And then
Broland.
Yeah, it's true. And then they're allowed to come back every year, twice a year, for a festival. And basically,
Which I assume is how they procreate.
Yeah, that's what I was
Probably.
thinking. I
They
was
haven't
just about to
gotten
think that.
it that far into it, but I'm assuming
Okay.
that's the case.
Mhm.
And then, once the boys turn 15, they have a final ritual ceremony where the boy will decide, am I going to stay with the warriors' country, or am I going to come back into the women's country and serve? And they become literally servants to the women. Not necessarily to their family, but they go to other towns or
Yeah.
families to be servitors, is what they call them.
I think I saw this on an episode of what's that Simpsons space cartoon? It's very much like the
Futurama.
Simpsons.
Futurama.
Futurama.
I think I
is
saw a
objectively the
Futurama
better
episode
show.
that's exactly like this, to be honest. But
You're
All right,
talking about the Amazonian planet with Snoo.
that is the one. Yes, that is the one.
Jerome, Evie,
My
Jerome
spirit is willing,
says
but my flesh is what is it? Flesh is weak and I don't know, whatever. Yeah.
Jerome
That was from
says,
that
says
episode,
something
right?
that
Yeah.
I would also say, because I read Gate to Women's Country and Grouse a long time ago. Also read Grouse. by her.
I immediately was just enthralled in the first chapter. Her prose, I hope this is like carried throughout. It's just so poetic and beautiful.
Mm.
And then I realized
Wow.
after the fact, when looking her up, like her biography, apparently she had published poetry in her lifetime. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
she's
like
a beautiful, beautiful writer.
there's this like depiction of light and like how she perceives it as like melancholic and nostalgic, and then at the end of the chapter it's like, no, that light is not melancholic or nostalgic, it's what does she describe it as, like bruised and threatening or something like that. And I'm like, man, this is hitting me out of the park so far. So
What that reminds me of, have you guys ever watched that live show that Townsend Zant did once? That there's a recording online. Townsend Zant is obviously the best singer-songwriter that ever existed. And there's that thing like in between where he talks to the audience, and someone in the audience asks him, like, why are all your songs sad? He's like, my songs aren't sad. They're hopeless. But then we're talking about someone who tried to kill himself by jumping out of a window in a psychiatry ward.
Goodness. Yeah.
He's still absolutely amazing. You should go and listen to his music at some point if you haven't yet.
Evie, Anitha is asking you, what's that blue book? I don't know if she means...
I was
that
just
one.
responding. Do you mean this, Anita? Because
Yeah.
this is what I was just talking about, the Gate to Women's Country.
Yeah.
So,
In a beautiful Sci-Fi Masterworks edition.
unless she was referring to this blue book, which is the
I knew
Maybe she was just offering you a
could
chance
totally
to
talk
mention
about
the
that
spear.
Do you, Evie, have different editions of Spear Cuts Through Water in all the colors of the rainbow? So whenever someone asks you, what's that color book, you can always pull out Spear Cuts Through Water.
I wish, because
so do I, to be honest. I wish I could get those books in every different color.
Oh, the red one behind me, or the green one,
Yeah.
or do you mean the blue one?
They're all
Yeah,
they're all the spear.
cuts through water.
It would be so funny if you do
Have
BookTube
I
videos
told
and the
you about
entire
our
shelf
Lord and
behind
Savior,
you.
Simon Jimenez?
yeah.
It would be so funny if the entire book.
Evie, did he touch on anything future when you spoke to him?
No.
Did you
And
not
she
watch
was-
the
she
interview?
was
I
with
being
him?
did. I did. He said he was working on something in a trope that he hasn't done yet.
But he
Yeah.
didn't get into it at all, and Evie was far too fangirly polite to push him on it, which I
I
totally
thought
would've-
maybe there was something
dude,
off
what are you working
screen, like
No.
you don't worry, we'll get something in like 2 years or something.
No,
I'm just because I'm checking every day to see if he's gonna.
He literally did say that he was actively working on it.
Yeah.
He had mentioned, which he had that I was surprised with the turnaround time on the Spear Cuts Through Water. He finished it in March, and it was ready for ARC readers in June, and then it was published in, obviously, the end
That
of
is
March.
incredibly fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the thing with both, with someone like George R. Martin. Whenever George R. Martin hands in Winds of Winter, not if but when, it will take about a year for that thing to be published, because with that name behind it, they want to ramp up, production, all that crap, and the promotion and whatnot. It'll take a year for anyone to read that fucking book. But with Jimenez, that's even for an unknown author at the time, that's still incredibly fast, because that means
I've been impressed recently by I just read a week ago, 2 weeks ago, the first Adrian Tchaikovsky thing that I ever read, Elder
that
Race.
man is publishing at a rate that
Oh
is
my
insane.
god! Recently, I think it was Jerome posted a link on the Discord to
the locust list. The locust list was so depressing.
Best of recommendations, whatever.
But
from
Tchaikovsky
2023.
was basically in every section.
Tchaikovsky was in all of the sections, because he
Not
last
in
year
the
he
first
brought out a
novel
sci-fi
section.
book. He brought out a fantasy book. He's hitting all of the and he slams out books. It's unbelievable.
I have not read a single one of his books.
Elder Race was good. It was. I mean, it's a novella, but it was tight and concise, like I expect a good novella to be.
Mhm.
And it was really interesting. I won't say anything because there is kind of a surprise about how the thing works, but basically you've got two different characters. Each chapter they have interchanging POVs, and they have extremely different perspectives on what the world is and how everything in the world works for reasons. And it was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I flew through it, read it in a day. I mean, it's only like 200 something pages.
So, real quick, to go back to The Spear Cuts Through Water, to be fair
Of
to
course.
yeah, sorry. Just before Dan leaves, because I know he's going to leave in like 10 minutes. To be fair, he did say that he was under, and I can't remember if this was in the interview or not, or I edited it out, or it was before or after. But anyways, he did mention that The Spear Cuts Through Water, he was contracted for The Spear Cuts Through Water, which surprised me. So I'm
sorry, what does that mean? So tell me his journey with the Vanished Birds, like.
So the Vanished Birds, he started it in college, in his his creative writing like MFA program, and he had he mentioned he had like 200 pages by the time he finished school, and he basically submitted that. There's no basically. He submitted that first chapter, as part of his like program or whatever. And then by the time he ended his program and he graduated, he had 200 pages that he was working with. And then he was like, expanding it, fleshing it out or whatever. And then he submitted it. And then with Spear Cuts Through Water, he pitched it to his publisher as the 5-day journey. Like there was nothing about the you perspectives or the choruses.
Yeah.
And so that was what he was contracted to do. And then I'm paraphrasing him here. He mentioned that he's like, of course I can't do anything like typical. I couldn't just do a 5-day epic fantasy. I had to, play with it. And I was like, that's really cool because everything works so well. So.
Yeah, I mean, especially when I heard that in the interview, I was like, dude, are you sure? Because everything you didn't start with is everything that's best about the book. Like all of the things he didn't have the multiple layered, nested narrative thing at the beginning. I'm like, how do you edit that in afterwards? That's crazy.
He said he worked really, really, really hard, and I'm like, that's great because it's
and it's paid off. Like I want this book to be. I want people to be singing this guy's praises, like
absolutely,
like Sanderson or like all these other.
As the Rogue says, Tchaikovsky. Oh no, Tchaikovsky and Jimenez. I would say better than Sanderson.
I agree. Tchaikovsky, Tchaikovsky has the output of Sanderson, but I'm sorry, any Sandersons, he's infinitely better quality.
Can I have my my Marxist moment of the evening, please? The Rogue. The problem is that he scrapped a 5-year plan. It might have been a 5-year gap plan, but it's still a 5-year plan. You don't scrap them, and serves him fucking right, George R. Martin, for scrapping the 5-year plan. All right, back to actual opinions. I just had to say that.
What are you reading?
Get me to shut up about Spear Cuts Through Water. It's fine.
Somebody asked a while ago, and I think it was maybe Chadia. There it is. It was maybe a reaction to Kart always joins these things full of loud personalities like myself and Evie and Raph and Dan.
I've never been described as a loud personality. I'm sorry.
Do you know you? Anyway.
You just happened to get me talking about Simon Jimenez, and I won't shut the fuck up.
To be fair, she was very quiet in the beginning. She sat there, she was patient.
And also, to be fair, 75% of the time that Evie is ever talking, she's talking about Simon Jimenez. In the rest of the time, she's very quiet. So anyway.
That's okay, in my opinion.
Tell us.
I started The Wings of Ashtaroth.
I wanted to ask you about that one. What is that? The
title
is that
has
me
intrigued. Page, retelling of some historical thing?
Yes, the conflict between Rome and
Carthage.
It's an
Yeah, that makes
indie
sense.
fantasy, and it's really long.
Yeah. So here's the
Um,
thing I wanted to ask you, Kat, because you as someone who reads way too many books written by people that are dead for like 2,000 years, um,
That would be school,
have you
right?
have you read Polybius? I assume you have.
Who?
Polybius, the historiographer,
No, I haven't.
who does sort of write about the whole Carthage thing. And there's this one part in the stuff he writes about Hannibal when they cross the Alps, and there's all the elephants die except one elephant who apparently survives until like almost the end of Hannibal's like whole war. And I
And they
always
name
wanted
him
to
Bill
learn
and
the
they take
name
him
of
to Moria.
I always wanted to learn the name of the elephant, and I assume it's not Bill. And I always feel so bad for that one elephant that actually survives all the battles. And I thought you
Well,
might be the person who knows the name of the
we
elephant.
have a whole Sunday pub full of nerds right now. So one of you nerds go out and figure out what the last remaining elephant's name was.
That should be Simon Jimenez should write a book about that elephant.
Yes.
How badass would that be?
And then we
I
have the
think
layers
that'd
of
be
me
perfect.
talking on the stream about a book about about
Yeah.
the elephant.
Yeah.
It's so sad because like what happened, like according to Polybius, what happened is like they drive the fucking elephants over the Alps and everyone freezes, and then they go and have the first battle and it starts raining and the whole battle ends in the battlefield becoming a swamp and the elephants being like knee deep in water. And that's when a lot of
This
them
is
die.
a great epic battle scene. Like somebody float this idea by a good writer.
Well,
There was a good writer who
read
incorporated a
Polybius.
lot of elephants in his battles, and I'm sure he was slightly Tolkien.
Are you
and
saying
I'm sure he
Tolkien?
was-
Or do you say
yeah.
Tolkien?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All right, so this is what I'm currently reading at this time.
show us, Dan.
I'm blowing through this. Oh, there
is
we
it?
go. I'm blowing
Oh
through that
yeah,
one right there.
Demon in White, Raph.
Yeah.
That's another book I have not read, and I will not read Sun Eater anytime soon.
No, we're
I'm
talking.
starting
I
Sun
think
Eater
we're trying to
as soon as I
convince
can.
Raph to read Sun Eater in one of these. I believe we were.
So
And
many
this
people
one.
have tried. I will not read Sun Eater for a
I'm
while.
starting Sun Eater as soon as I can. I have the first book on my shelf. And you're reading Nievel. Okay, The Scar.
Yeah,
That's
dying
good.
to get into.
Yeah, The Scar's good. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been quite a while since I read Nievel, but yeah.
And I finished
Thank you,
Blackwater
Daniel, for
by
figuring
McDonald.
it out. Daniel figured it out. The name of the elephant was Cirrus.
What did I tell you? We have a pub full of nerds. All you have to do is
I love
put
it.
out there. There is something
There you
that we
go.
don't know. Come be smarter than us, and someone will do it.
I've
Cirrus
I've
is the name of
definitely
the elephant.
hashtag Team Cirrus.
Yeah.
Best elephant ever. And here's an interesting
Sunday
detail.
Pup Nerds. Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing about these elephants, because I looked that up and was like, what kind of elephants did Hannibal actually use? Because we know that like African elephants are very hard to domesticate, whereas Indian elephants, like how do they end up in Carthage? And it turns out there was a North African wood elephant that has actually been killed and hunted to extinction by now. But they had their own elephants in Carthage that are, native Carthage elephants, and we don't have them anymore because they're dead. Which is your elephant fact of the day.
All right. As well as the fact that Hannibal's last elephant was named Cirrus. Damn, Danya, I'm impressed. Brian says I will love Sun Eater. That's why I want to read it. Any author who like every time he talks about his book says heavily inspired by Dune and the Book of the New Sun. I'm like, dude, I'm sold.
See,
I'm
that's
going
the
for
point why I'm not
Star
reading it.
Wars here. It's very Star Wars-esque as well.
But Star Wars
I
is
think,
heavily
in my
Dune inspired.
Influenced.
Like
Dune,
it's basically
okay.
a Dune remake.
Yeah.
This story is
adaptation.
amazing, guys. I'm telling you. I'm book 3. I'm freaking tearing through book 3 right now, and
See,
it's
yeah.
really good.
I'm a bit of a contrarian, which is why I have not started.
No,
Sun Eater, because
you're a
everyone-
contrarian, Raph?
No way.
You?
As long as everyone loves Sun Eater, I will not read it.
Of
As soon as
course.
everyone starts hating it, I will definitely go and read it. Also, Kadia,
Because not
you
reading
wanna
something
read-
because it's apparently good enough that everyone loves it is a very, very sensible
There,
idea.
hey, to be fair, there's a lot of people out there like that. This is way too popular. I don't want to read it.
I'm cooler than this. I can't
No,
read
no, 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 but
everything that all
here's
the
the
cool kids are reading.
But that's the thing. It's not about being cool. I could just go and read it and not tell anyone about it, right? I could do that. It's literally that as soon as everyone talks about a book, I have this weird reflex to go like, nah, I'm not going to read that.
Yeah,
Which is the
I
same
get
thing-
that.
Which is the same thing with why I haven't read any Adrian Tchaikovsky. I even followed the bastard on Blue Sky, and he's a super nice guy and everything. I'm
Chadia
sure I'll
wants to
love
know if that's why you haven't read The Spear.
That may be part of it. It is still on my phone. I'm going to read it. I downloaded it. It's taking up memory space on my very limited iPhone where you can't actually add
I
more
want you-
memory and whatnot.
I want you to not read it because if you don't read it, Evie will eventually feel driven to come to Germany to kick your ass, and then she'll only be like 5 or 6 hours away from me, and we could visit, and that would be cool. So don't read The Spear. We
Yes.
we want Evie to come kick your ass. For those of you who don't know, I mean, like, I know American ideas about Europe are funny sometimes. Like, Raph and I live in the same country, but it's like I live in New York and he lives in Charleston, North Carolina. Or no, more like maybe Richmond, Virginia. Little
I
more
live
so.
in the absolute dead center of Germany.
Right, which is 6 hours away from me on a train. Five,
No, it's
6 hours.
4 hours.
When I looked it up, because we had a thing right after I started my
Yeah,
channel,
yeah.
we had a
The-
thing
the
where
thing
I
is
was
that
like,
there's like-
Raph, I need to come to the town you live in for work. I'll come visit you. And I was looking I was looking on the train app, and it said it was going to take 5 hours or something. But yeah, it's not around the corner. Raph and I do not live in the same city or anything. So
So here's the thing, though, because Kadia finished The Thousandfold Thought, which is a solid book, but not as good as everyone thinks it is. Say I. You want to buddy read Gog Magog by Jeff Noon with me, because it's coming out on Tuesday in audio, and I know that Jeroen is already reading it, and I'm very envious, and it's all cool, and it's about a river journey on a river in a dead dragon. Like
All
the
right,
river is
who
going through the dead
finished
dragon.
The Thousandfold Thought?
Well,
who
I
you
have finished
say-
it like years ago. I don't like it
Yeah,
that much.
you didn't like it that much. It had
Talia
its
said
flaws.
she's gonna kick your ass, and she has a car, and it's not that far. Where do you live, Chadia?
What?
She says she's going to come kick your ass, or she might come kick your ass, and she has a car, and it's not that far, which makes me wonder where she lives. Oh my God! Look, it's Tori, the
Yeah,
world
Tori.
famous author of the Bloodstones.
Which I have not said a mean thing about yet.
No, you actually, Tori, you missed it. We were like gushing,
And you better not,
about your book.
I might.
because I'd love to visit Germany. I'm just kidding.
Well, for Kadia, she lives in Belgium.
It's
That's like
pronounced
a
Kadia.
that's a
Kadia.
4-hour drive. Kadia wanted to kick my ass, and it's like a 4-hour drive. roughly.
Okay.
Belgium is not that large. We invaded every couple decades.
I'm sorry, I've been mispronouncing your name like forever, Kadia. Belgium.
I don't know either. I just assumed. You just assumed my assumption.
Okay, that's definitely something to not do.
It's assumption inception.
Chadia / Kadia, correct either Raf or myself in the chat, please. Is it with a ch or is it with a k?
With a k.
Huh.
Or is it with one of those weird sounds?
That's the thing. We have an
only
actual
Belgium or
we have an
Belgian or
actual
Dutch
Belgian in
people.
the
That-
conversation.
Saying that huh
Kadia.
is weird, that's anti-Semitic.
Chadia.
Is it?
Okay.
I thought it was
I'm
actually
kidding,
anti-Dutch.
I'm kidding.
So you're putting the Chad back in Chadia.
Okay, so apparently I was
Correct.
strangely correct. So it's Chadia. Or is it like Kat said, like weird Chadia with like a growling sound in your throat?
The what is it, the Fleming sound with the CH.
That's why they're called Flemish.
There's a
No,
lot of
but
phlegm in
Flemish.
phlegm.
Like
Blood,
chutzpah. He's got chutzpah.
Chutzpah, yeah, exactly.
Flemish is actually related to flood because it's a lot
Your
of it
country is so flat.
is so flat and it's like sea level or slightly above or slightly below,
Yeah.
and so there were a lot of floods. And so
I had this
Holland or the
conversation-
Netherlands is the only place I've ever been. Well, other than Israel, where
I've been there.
you're on land and you're below sea level.
Yeah.
And as soon as
What's
I
that?
thought
The,
about that,
the
for-
Dead Sea or something?
yeah, I swam in the Dead Sea.
That's the
You can float.
I've
You
not
float
been
on
there.
it.
The Dead Sea
I've
is so
not
weird,
been there.
but also Netherlands. Like as soon as I thought about that, I'm like, damn, it's kind of dangerous, isn't it? And of course, that's why Netherlands has all sorts of dams and walls blocking
were,
water and
You
stuff
might,
like that.
you might want to read In Ascension by Martin McInnes. It got longlisted for a Booker Prize, and it's a science fiction novel, but it's also very much about the Netherlands and building dams and stuff and the ocean.
Okay.
And it's really,
Yeah,
really good.
I've been to the Netherlands twice, and Rotterdam. They got a lot of names of cities that have a dam
Dams.
after it, right? So
Yeah.
the first obvious city that I went to in Netherlands was Amsterdam,
Yeah.
and then I stayed in Rotterdam, which was just a few miles above it, I believe.
Mhm.
That's like in Massachusetts where everything ends in ham, but it's not always pronounced ham. It could be. It could
Look,
be.
a day that
Chatham.
ends with ham is a good day. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I love that.
Unless you're allergic to pork, then it's unfortunate.
That
Okay.
would suck. And if you got anybody out in the chat's allergic to pork, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Or if you keep kosher,
Oh, I
I'm
love
sorry. I
Love
don't
pork.
keep kosher because I like pork.
Yeah.
My
Um,
husband makes his own bacon. Well, he makes bacon. Like he doesn't like slaughter the pig, but like he'll cut the thing. He'll make bacon.
He'll trim it.
World
trim it down.
famous author of The Bloodstones has joined us, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry.
If you're gonna make me feel awkward, I'm just gonna leave. I'm just kidding.
Of course, we're going to make you feel awkward.
Matt
That would be
is
iconic.
So
We already had a long chat about your book and got it out of our system,
Yeah.
and long before you joined, and it was resoundingly positive, except for Raf, who said he started the audiobook, but he was drunk and he's not sure if it's good.
That's fine.
I said I
He
only
said
read
he
the
liked
three
it. He
chapters.
said he liked what he remembered of it.
He did, but then he said he was drunk and he's not sure if it counts.
I was not that drunk. I got drunk afterwards, which is the problem.
Ah, okay.
Also, it has
My
probably the
question
most
would be
realistic.
what part made you get drunk afterwards? That would be my
The first having to have a very enthusiastic girl try to convert me to Christianity,
Oh Jesus!
which
Literally.
I'm already baptized Catholic. Your evangelical stuff don't work on me. I'm immune. Also, I know way too much to have a casual conversion conversation with me. So that was
I've
part of it.
literally said to a number of people, I'm a reborn Buddhist. Do we need to have this conversation?
It was just really funny. I really liked her. She was super into it and trying to convert me in like at midnight. It was really interesting. And then I got drunk with my flatmate listening to the semi-new because it's like half a year old now, Rolling Stones album, and that kind of made me drunk. I will say the Bloodstones has the most realistic description of someone pissing themselves that I've read in a long time.
You can put that
Praise
on the
for
blurb
the-
on the jacket.
It's important to have that in the story,
Especially a
that
fantasy
visceral,
story.
because that definitely brings a smell to the story as well, without you really having to mention smell. You know what I mean? So it's very atmospheric for somebody to piss themselves in a scene. So
Speaking
I'm
of
so
smell,
glad. I'm so glad I joined this stream.
Speaking of
Or
smell,
like on the cover, the most realistic.
yeah, exactly. That you can put a quote on a blurb on your cover. The
The
most
sales will
realistic
go up in no time.
description of
Yeah,
pissing yourself ever in
I
fantasy.
mean, I'll take
Draft
whatever
Snoop Dogg.
accolades I can get, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you would sell like at least 50 books just from that statement alone.
The way it ought to be written.
No, but that's kind of the point. It's like, right? I've only read the first like 4 chapters, maybe. And that part when whatever the guy's name is, the totally not Bran guy's name is. I'm sorry for insulting your characters. Gets in the prison and he pisses himself, and that thing stuck with me because I'm like, yeah, this feels real in a way. You know, where there's things that you don't think about much.
Mm-hmm.
But when you read about them and they're done wrong, you notice. And that part was not done wrong. That one was done right.
It was just like last time you pissed yourself.
It's been
I would say, yeah,
It's
with the
been a while.
writing, at least in Bloodstones, that I liked was that, you know, to build this scene, and I think, you know, she really found the right things to describe. Like you have this whole scene that is going on, and it's important to in my opinion, as the reader is reading and it's unfolding, it's important for a description to really hit home. And, you know, for a description that's really, you know, what's it, redundant? That's not necessary, right, Matt?
Kadia,
Did I
I
lose
did
him?
not get drunk to test out the pissing scene. I did not do that. I would
Yeah,
like to
that
have
is
it
the
remembered that
hard
it's been decades since I last pissed myself.
I'm eating some amazing chocolate, so I was distracted. What was
I
that?
bet I do that too. I'm just, once the chocolate hits the tongue, I'm in my own zone right there.
Chocolate and a really good scotch, and just
Ooh.
forget about it. I'm in another world.
Listen, guys, I'm gonna hop off. It is Sports Bowl weekend over here, and
What
go
kind of sport-
Niners.
What kind of sports ball are you talking about, though?
The Sports Bowl.
American football.
American
the thing where you call it
football,
and
man.
everyone is constantly handling that thing that is not a ball with their hands, which are not their feet.
I suggest we all call it handball from now on.
It's an egg, whatever you want to call it. It's the greatest game in the history of games. It is chess with men, you know, with dudes hitting it is battle on the field.
If
You know,
wanted
I just love
better
it.
game,
See, here's the thing, Mike.
Hockey, so I'm a hockey fan too, but
Not
I don't
bad.
think anything's better than football.
If you
You
want
got
a
to be
game,
smart.
if you want a game played with an egg where real men actually bash each other, watch rugby.
Yeah, I
Like,
had two.
American football
flatmates.
is a bunch of pussies compared to
Yeah.
rugby.
I had
Rugby
two
is
flatmates who
scary.
were both playing. I had two flatmates who were both playing women's rugby, and I've hung out with way too many women's rugby players.
And then if you want to upgrade from rugby,
yeah,
go on YouTube and watch Australian rules football. It's basically, obviously it's only played in Australia, and it's mostly like the people who are really into it, who call it church, are in Melbourne, like southeast Australia.
Yeah,
but it's crazy. Everybody go to YouTube and look up Australian rules football.
you may understand there is a contradiction in terms in something that is called Australian rules, whatever afterwards.
So really quick before I jump off, because Matt does bring up Australia rugby, and I just have an amazing story about my team, right? So the Philadelphia Eagles drafted a rugby player with their last pick in the 2017 draft, and that rugby player came over to America, never played a single down of football, but there's a lot that goes into that, and is now starting left tackle, which is the left tackle is the most important position on the field. He is starting left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles and is currently one of my favorite players of all time. He was a professional rugby player before. We grabbed him, brought him over here, turned him into a football player, and he was on The Masked Singer not too long ago, and his name is Jordan Mailata, and he is the man.
And so you basically you told him to only hit people sometimes, and that's how he learned how to play football, right?
Yeah, you have to hit the right person because everybody has to be in the right position before a play to go through in football. Everybody has to do their job, and it's a different job every play.
All right, Bill Belichick, Get out of here.
Yes, see? It's a football mind. I'm going to take off, guys. Love you all. Have a
Fun.
wonderful
All right. See
weekend,
you around, man.
okay?
Good to
See
see
you,
you,
Go
Dan.
sports ball.
Thanks for joining.
You do the sports ball thing, and I do the self-serve pub thing, which is I go to the fridge. See you in a
So
second.
to take a pause from trying to embarrass Tori about her book, which is wonderful. No, she's just soaking up all the praise.
I mean, I have to at least sort of pretend to be humble, you know?
Yeah, but you're a Slytherin. We've already talked about this. There's no humility.
No.
What are you reading?
I am currently reading The Wager by David Gran. It's the one about came out like a year or two ago. It's about the shipwreck murder mystery where there were two sets of survivors with completely different tales of what happened.
Oh,
The nonfiction, right?
It is not, well, yeah. It's a nonfiction historical account that takes in, like, taking all of the different accounts and kind of giving us all the information so we can see if we can decide what actually happened, because they never apparently decided what the truth was.
Wow.
So,
Okay, that sounds
yeah.
What are
really
you?
interesting.
What's that book? I only
Repeat
read the
all of
last-
that for Ralph.
Sure.
No, just the title.
The Wager by David Gran.
Okay. No, because I got in after the title. I'm like, hey, this sounds really cool.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I
liking
didn't- I
it so
just missed
far.
the title. Okay, cool.
I'm like 70
But,
pages
Rob,
in, I
I
think.
think it won the Goodreads Choice Award last year, so it might be too popular for you.
Yeah, you don't want to read anything that other people are reading, Ralph.
But it won in historical and nonfiction categories, so I feel like that's like the not as cool area of Goodreads awards.
By default,
The-
even the best historical nonfiction is still not popular.
I just
Yeah, I mean, only 10 people voted on that category
Exactly.
at all. So
talking about historical though, I
Not
just
really
read Kingdom of Naboo by Benjamin Park, which is, well, about the 5 years
about
Mormons
the
had a
ship
city.
that the Mormons built in the Expanse. No.
Almost. No, it's
Okay.
it's about the city of Nauvoo in nowadays Illinois. Just the 5 years that the Mormons stayed in Nauvoo before Joseph Smith died the most American death imaginable, which is being shot while jumping out of a prison window.
That is pretty American, yeah.
And
America.
because it's really interesting and really good because in 2016 the LDS Church finally unsealed a lot of, or allowed historians access to a lot of like minutes of meetings of the Relief Society, all these societies in the from like 1839 to 1844 in Nauvoo. So that's sort of like the first history, and it kind of focuses on those 5 years, and it's a super fascinating, cool book to see how things escalated and ended the way they ended in 44.
No
Really
matter how
recommend it.
conscious of it I try to be, even when you say it, but especially when I read it, I always get in my head the LSD church.
I know.
I know it's the LDS Church. I consciously know that, but every
Matt,
time I
how
see it,
many
I'm just
times
like,
do I need to
"It's the
tell you that
LSD Church."
you should not confuse the Manson family with the Mormons? There's a difference.
I
One
think
of them
Mormons
is the
would be a
LSD
lot more
church.
fun if they took more acid, though.
I don't know. I've learned so much about Mormons now.
I'm sure you have.
I've reached the next level of toxic masculinity. I can not only mansplain stuff, I can now Gentile-splain Mormonism to Mormons.
I always just I definitely can't do that, but I always tried to explain Buddhism to them when they came to my door.
Yeah.
Which was a really quick way to get rid of them. You know. Hi, I'm a born again Buddhist. Would you like to hear about our Lord and Savior Gautama Buddha? And that usually sent them away.
He's the guy who sat under that tree that then got chopped down in like a vicious civil war.
Exactly. I've meditated under a cutting of a tree that was a cutting of that tree.
Okay.
Theoretically. I think that's actually mythology probably, but yeah, the temple in Bodh Gaya in India has a tree that everyone kind of thinks of as the tree he sat under, but it's definitely not the tree he sat under. Obviously, that was way too long ago for it to be the tree. So we said we were going to do sprints after Dan left, because Dan was here ruining our fun, and now he's gone, and we can do sprints. So why don't we start a sprint, half an hour? So quarter to the hour. Wait, we will come back.
That sounds good.
There we go. So everybody mute yourselves and see you
On the
in
other
half an hour.
side.
Enjoy your reading. Good evening. And here's Britain.
Good evening, or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
We had a full minute, Matt.
Yeah, not really.
Uh-huh.
Tori used to raise alpacas.
Alpacas are like llamas if you actually want to knit stuff out of
Yes.
them.
And they pronk.
It's really cute when you let them out of the barn in the morning. They do the it's really cute. They get really excited and they like pronk down the hill. It's awesome.
Pronk?
It's
That is
basically
a word
bounce.
I've never heard.
It's like what antelope. It's if you watch antelope run. There's kind of this bouncy It's very cute.
Okay. Wow.
Here's the thing, though. You're the right people. I need to ask this.
We are the right people.
Yeah, you definitely are.
Just fundamentally.
Not in a political sense, I hope. And my point is, I want to get back into knitting because I do love knitting. I have this problem, though. I never know what to do and what to knit. Because I have a scarf, which is all the knitting I personally need. And I just need some motivation. I'm
isn't knitting about gifting people shit? Like my grandmother used to, isn't it about gifting people shit? My grandmother used to knit a lot, and everything she knitted was for somebody else.
Matt, I am an antisocial asshole living on a lonely mountain. I don't have anyone to gift things to.
Knitting
I don't have
could be
minions
your
yet.
way to change that. I mean, it so fits your image, like long beard, drinking all the time, death metal, knitting.
Yes.
I don't listen to death metal.
Or
I'll not go into the details.
I don't listen to any metal, so I'm totally wrong on that. I want to take a question from Brian because he asks about one of my favorite subjects. When I first read Gardens, Brian, do not try and judge your reading of Malazan with my first reading of Malazan.
Or anyone else's.
Or anyone else's, but especially not mine, because I was in the middle of the pandemic lockdown. I had just recently had my girlfriend disappear unexpectedly. I just recently lost my job unexpectedly. I was honestly like maybe approaching suicidal. And the thing that kind of saved my life is Stephen Erickson's writing. And I read all 10 books of the Malazan Book of the Fallen in 3 months, maybe 4. So
well, that got dark.
That's
true.
It's life. That's
telling
life.
what happened. And I just read Malazan all day, every day, basically. I was either reading Malazan or playing video games. So you don't want to do that. And I don't think you ever would even think of doing that because you're in a very different situation and much more positive situation than I was at the time. I just needed something to do that kept my mind occupied, and Malazan is good for keeping
Really
your mind
good at that.
occupied. Yeah, and
I once read the entire 10 books in 1 month. But that's that was like semester break. I had nothing to do. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just woke up, drank tea all day, and read Malazan until I fell back into bed, and then did.
I thought I was overdoing it with 3 months. Yeah, Brian says 80 pages a day, and it seems plenty. I think that's plenty.
I read 60 pages a day when I can, anyway.
I read a lot of pages a day if I have the time, but Malazan specifically, I think is worth taking your time on and thinking about because there's a lot going on which is not surface. It's not a beach read.
One thing I think is important when reading Malazan though is don't count pages, go by chapters. Read a chapter to the end and maybe stop after that because the chapters are structured the way they are for a reason and it makes sense to stop after a chapter.
That's true. Although some of the chapters are 120, 130 pages long. But that's later.
Yeah.
Before we get into the Malazan talk, fully, completely. To answer your question, Raph, I think you need to knit either beer coasters or beer koozie. There you go.
See, the beer koozie thing is one of those things that I don't understand because it's apparently a very American thing.
It
Germans
is.
don't have beer koozies.
No, because Americans don't know how to drink their beer fast enough that it doesn't get cold.
That might be.
It doesn't get warm, rather.
I was about to show you the biggest blue balls you've seen in a long time, and then I realized that's probably wrong. But I have a bunch of like blue wool lying behind me in very big balls.
What my grandma does, Ralph, is she donates them. They're actually social. When
Also
you
good.
can-
Yeah. Like I'm good at that. I once knitted a cape with a cowl and everything.
Knitted a cape.
Yes, a booktuber, sort of booktuber, and unfortunately not doing anything for a long time now. Cal, known as Caller's Unfortunate Children, whatever, runner of, he runs the Moonspawn
Yep.
Discord. Yeah, he's got the cape of objective reality, and I did knit that.
Oh, that's
There's a
Of
video where he shows it off.
reality.
He runs his channel is Very Good and Kind, which is really funny and does a lot of very good kind jokes.
Mm.
So Ursa apparently did read Malazan as a beach read. Read it at a seaside resort in the Philippines. Yeah,
Easy airplane read.
that does sound like like a
Oh,
weird
wait.
experience.
You just mentioned The Sword of Truth, one of my most hated fantasy novels of all time.
I did not mention The Sword of Truth. I try to avoid mentioning it. It is not a very good book. I'll say that. I've read it though.
Did anyone mention the Sword of Truth?
Well, he mentioned Very
Very
Good
Good
Kind,
Kind.
actually. I should.
I said that Cal's channel, Very Good and Very Kind, which has really funny Malazan themed cover songs and stuff.
Okay.
And Cal has that cape, and it's a big cape. I spend a lot of wool on that one. There's old videos from like me doing the Malazan read through thing that I did in like 2020, where I show off my knitting every time I talk about Malazan.
Yeah, I think donating it or like because you have cultivated an image as a curmudgeon, which is
Have I?
objectively quite simple to prove is bullshit. But because you have that, but you've done it on BookTube, which means you actually do have quite a lot of friends. So you could just send random booktubers
Hats.
beanies. I mean, Tori would kill for a Raph
You know?
beanie, no doubt.
I am the connoisseur of beanies.
She's
over
beanie
here,
queen.
So, yeah.
What kind of color? Right now, I only have gray,
Black.
blue, and black wool. The thing is with the black wool is it's sort of this fuzzy wool that has like fuzz going all over the place. So it's not the best thing for a beanie, I think. It's
Gray's cool.
more
I
something for
gray.
like
Gray's
a
cool.
muffler or something. I think. What?
Yeah,
Gray's
Gray's
cool?
cool. Yeah, like gray.
All right. I'll knit you a black beanie, whatever hat kind of thing.
Cool.
There you go.
You might want to send me
Your head.
the most yeah, I was going to say the most phrenological thing ever. It's a bad way to go there, but like, I need your skull measurements right now. Not right now, but I need it.
Just to measure your intelligence.
Nah, sort of like just a rough thing, but although I guess I can just like, yeah, fuck it, I'll just go with like 80. 80 sounds good. 80 being the, I don't even know the English word for that, but you know what I mean, like the loops. I think 80 sounds reasonable. 80, somewhere between 80 and 90, whatever. And because you do that with like 4 needles, so you can knit it around. Having something that is divisible by 4 is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. I can't knit to save my life. I only crochet, so I have no idea.
So I don't crochet. I knit because knitting is something you can do when you're blind, and crochet is much harder because you need to sort of, you know,
Yeah.
you put the crochet hook through the thing, and you need to see stuff.
That makes sense.
Chadia says they're called stitches, Raf.
Stitches.
My aunt crochets.
My grandmother was like a lifelong knitter, and it always impressed me that because she could like you said, you can do it blind. She would talk to you, look at you for half an hour without looking at her knitting, but she would never stop. She'd just be like, tick, 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 tick.
And that's one of the things that really helps me listening to audiobooks, because I need to do something physical with my hands while listening. Otherwise, I lose sort of, concentration, focus, and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there's only so many dishes I can do in this apartment, and so much laundry I can hang up. And knitting is something that helps a lot, which is why I drink so much. Not beer, but tea. I drink a lot of tea because it's something physical I can do all day long. And I can drink tea all day long. And I do 4 or 5 liters of tea every day because I need to do something physical while reading or listening. And knitting is something that helps.
I can only listen to audiobooks while I'm moving.
Probably can't knit very well if you're intoxicated, I imagine.
That's why he drinks tea while he's knitting.
Yes. Also, it's all muscle memory. Once you just do the super easy stitch, you can keep going forever.
That would be a fun.
I've knitted an entire hat during a New Year's Eve party for 4 hours, and I got drunk and I knitted a hat during that.
That would be a fun show. You getting intoxicated and knitting and ranting about books.
But that's the thing. Is I thought it might be really neat for especially for sprints, because I always don't want to do sprints because I'm just listening to a book. But knitting sprints sound like something I can do.
I thought about doing spinning during sprints, like listening to an audiobook and spinning.
You got a spinning wheel? That's awesome.
I do. Yep.
See, that's one of the things I really want to get into, is learning how to spin. Weaving is another one, getting either a tablet weaving or an inkle loom to do that's
Weaving
really
is
cool
fun.
stuff.
There was I used to live in Hamburg, and there's a part of Hamburg that everyone's heard of called St. Pauli. And Pauli is a pretty rough area. It's becoming gentrified, but
it's incredibly fucking gentrified by now.
Yeah. But back when I moved in, it was still pretty rough, and sort of the home base of Antifa. And there was this empty building, which was just basically a square box with a big glass window in the front. And one day, a lady who was a weaver took it over and made a weaving shop. And I used to stand outside her window and just watch her, because she had this, I don't know, 2 meter, 3 meter wide loom, a really serious, massive loom. And she made the most beautiful, blankets and rugs and unbelievable stuff. And to me, it's one of those crafts that is, from what I know about it, it's indistinguishable from magic. Watching her do what she was doing, I was like, there's no way doing that turns into that beautiful thing. I don't understand how that works. There's got to be magic in there somewhere.
That's kind of the fascinating thing, because I grew up. I went to school at a Waldorf school, which are weird places. Trust me.
That explains everything, Ralph.
It does.
I get it now. Yeah.
But that's the interesting thing.
You're a Waldorf kid. Okay.
I'm a Waldorf kid. Yeah. But we had both we had 2 different craft classes. One for what you might call where we learned knitting and sewing and crocheting and all of that stuff. I know how to do fucking cross stitch. I can do that stuff. And the other one was where you learn how to including stuff I left before, I had to go to a blind school after, school for the blind after that. But at the time, there's silversmithing and actual smithing as a class in school, which is so fucking awesome, where people can actually smith a knife as a class project.
I was a blacksmith's apprentice for a couple of years, a long time ago, when I was doing medieval reenactment.
Yeah.
And there was a professional blacksmith.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I want to know how to do what you do. And that's part of the reason I have a sword I made myself hanging on the wall behind me in my videos. And Evie, like us losers, we're all sitting here talking about knitting. And Evie's like, nah, fuck that. I'm getting my needles out.
Can I just say something? Because also just mentioned something in the chat, which is like in the Fiannavar tapestry, the creator is known as the Weaver. And it's I have a lot of issues with the Wheel of Time, and I will not get started on it. But the main fucking thing is that it's about the wheel. And he's like, the wheel weaves as the wheel wants. Like, Robert,
wheels don't weave.
Jordan, weave. It's like you think about spinning. You got your metaphor wrong from the start, bastard. Get it right.
But the Loom of Time would have been a really stupid name for a series.
I know. I get what he's doing, but he's like, you're wrong about the metaphor. It doesn't fucking work at all.
I read a book that had a lot of like weaving metaphors for like life.
Mm-hmm.
And it only exists in French. There's no translation from it in any language, which is unfortunate. But
my French is broken.
There is one that I really loved, which is a metaphor for growing up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when a thread enters a tapestry.
Yeah.
It might be a little scared to just disappear in all the beauty
beautiful.
of the tapestry. Until it realizes that it doesn't disappear in a tapestry, it becomes the tapestry.
Something to think about.
I am not tough on. It's beautiful. It feels very real. Growing up, yeah, I get it. Also, I'm not tough on Wheel of Time or Robert Jordan right now. I'm just saying the metaphor doesn't work. There are good things in the Wheel of Time, and I've said that before. There is something that Robert Jordan is really good at, and unfortunately, he doesn't do it a lot. But he's really good at doing cosmic.
He's
horror.
really good at it. He almost never does it though.
No, that's the thing. There's a scene there's a set piece in, I think it's like the 9th, 10th, 11th, one of those late books that everyone always calls a slog, which pisses me off because like the whole thing is a slog or nothing is a slog. Those books are just a slog to you.
All you Wheel of Time fans, you are the ones. You Wheel of Time fans are the ones who have convinced me that I will never read it.
So
it's not the people who hate it; it's the people who say they love it who have convinced me to never even try again to read it.
But Raph, are there some books that are sloggier than other books?
No. The worst.
Everyone seems to disagree with you, though, Raph, because
they're wrong.
I've heard from everybody that like. I don't know, 6 to 8
or
7 to 10 or something.
The worst Wheel of Time books are book 5 and book 6, and everyone loves them.
Ron says what Jordan isn't good at is writing trilogies. Yeah. Apparently not.
Unfortunately also true. No, but there's what I was going to say is like there's a really good thing in that 9th, 10th, 11th, whatever book where some character enters this town. This town is all paranoid because suddenly dead people are showing up. There's a ghost. The whole thing would have worked perfectly as a really creepy, well-done horror novella. It's crammed into a Wheel of Time book, so it's kind of, problematic for all kinds of reasons. But that stuff, the sort of cosmic and sometimes just regular horror stuff, Jordan is really good at. He's good at creating that atmosphere, at making it creepy, all that stuff. He's really good at. He sucks at everything else, but that he's really good at.
I'm with Mitch. If I ever have to go to prison, I'll read The Wheel of Time. But while I'm free, I don't see any point.
If I get jailed, I'll just be like, "Did you get some of these books?" And the cops, because prison system in America is fucking shit. So they'll be like, "No, fuck you. You're a prisoner. What are you doing?" Unless you're Brian Lee Durfee, then in that case, he might give you some books.
Circus plotline in book 5. Yeah, I can't even imagine getting to book 5.
There's a circus in Wheel of Time?
There's a circus. Wheel of Time has everything. It's like the world. It has everything and most of it sucks.
Exactly like the world.
Oh my god, that should be a Goodreads review. It's like the world; it has everything in sex.
I gotta get myself another beer though.
Do it.
That Wheel
Well,
of Time
Raph
thing
being
makes me
cheerful as
hysterical.
always.
So now we've inspired two ladies to do things with needles, but I assume since Tori said she can't knit,
I'm
You're
not knitting. No.
crocheting.
So I have a new niece that was born at the end of January,
Cool.
who I am making a blanket for currently.
Nice.
So, and I thought I had 2 more weeks to make it. And then they surprised us by telling us they lied to everybody about what their due date was, which was super smart, by the way. So I have 2 less weeks to make it than I thought I did.
No. Well, you better get to it.
Working on it.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm a little disturbed because I discovered yesterday that one of my favorite people on BookTube, one of my closest friends on BookTube, is a Slytherin. That's Tori.
Anything against Slytherin?
Slytherin? What is this? Wait,
I haven't
did that
even
the other day?
I haven't read the books, but I did the quiz, and turns out I'm a Gryffindor, which makes sense because I'm full of myself. I ignore rules, and I can get away with it because I look good and I'm the main character.
Yeah. That's
That sounded very Gryffindor of you, Raph.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm a Hufflepuff.
I haven't done any tests or anything, but I think I'm a Hufflepuff who wishes he was a Gryffindor. Or I'm just a Gryffindor who has an inferiority complex and thinks he should be a Hufflepuff.
What Hufflepuff claim to fame? One of the guy dies in book 4. Like, that's it.
In my heart of hearts, I want to be a Ravenclaw because it means sitting at home and drinking tea and reading books all day.
You can still do that.
Yeah.
I do that already.
I did the test a few times and I have like 50-50 Ravenclaw or Slytherin. But Slytherin.
Okay. All right. All right. People to be
talking
careful around.
Talk about wool and
Good to know.
balls. This is the kind of wool I have. Tori, is one of these
Yes.
gray? Is that the kind of gray you want?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Love it.
All right. I'll get you a hat.
You leaving, Evie?
Evie's leaving.
At some point, I'll message you, and you have to send me your
Max-
address so I can ship it to you.
Sounds good.
See you,
I would,
Evie.
I would, I would
yes.
appreciate you actually sending me money for the shipping because shipping to the US is insane.
That is true. Although something like that, which is light, is probably like $10. Or,
So here's the thing: when
It's not that
for the record label, I might be able to actually get it through like commercial shipping, and then it would be cheap. I can do that. Ha! I got it to you.
this is for those of you in America who don't know this. This is a constant thing when you're in Europe. Like I keep seeing a special edition I want, and it's like, oh, it's published and sent from America.
Yeah.
The postage will cost almost as much as the book. Maybe I won't be getting that, or I back a lot of board games on Kickstarter.
Yeah, you're fucked with
'cause
that.
I'm into board games, and I always look ahead of time. I'm like, where are they? What kind of shipping deals have they got? Like, you back it for like $30, and then it costs $25 to get it sent to you. It's crazy.
It's insane. I remember I've bought vinyl records on Bandcamp, and it like the shipping for the vinyl from the US to Germany is more than the actual vinyl. But I think that the most expensive thing I ever bought was a Kickstarter for a board game. It was the Ogre Designers Edition by Steve Jackson Games, and they had to ship it with FedEx because USPS doesn't even offer that kind of packet size because it's so fucking huge.
Crazy. Also, I think actually you're a Huffleclaw.
Huffleclaw.
I don't think you're a Ravenpuff. I think you're a Huffleclaw.
Raven.
Ravenpuff also sounds
so
cute,
here's
but-
the thing you need to understand. Matt does understand that because he lives in Germany. The German slang word for brothel is puff.
Poof. Yeah.
So be careful with the Raven puff.
Yeah, you don't want to be a Ravenpuff. You want to be a Huffleclaw, I think. If you're going to come to Germany anyway. Yeah. I used to live upstairs from a puff, from a brothel in Hamburg. Like I said, the area I lived in, St. Pauli, like I don't know if Americans have heard of this. It's kind of famous in Europe, at least. The Reeperbahn. The Reeperbahn is a street in Hamburg, which is full of nightclubs, bars, restaurants, and prostitutes. And it's people come to Hamburg as tourists to go to the Reeperbahn because it's so famous, and it's a really interesting place. And I used to live a block from the Reeperbahn.
Here's the thing, Matt. Have you, in your time in Hamburg, have you ever been to Clochard?
Yeah.
The best bar ever.
Yeah.
Also the dirtiest bar ever.
Yeah, although it's probably
I think they closed. They closed down when COVID started. They just like locked the store and I was like, "Well, we're done. Fuck it, that's it."
Yeah.
Which is sad because I miss that place.
Yeah, I used to go to Sorgenbrecher.
That's such a beautiful name for a bar.
Every Friday night. Yeah, Sorgenbrecher. Sorgen are like your worries.
It's a sorrows breaker.
Blecha is breaker, so it's basically your worries breaker or your sorrows breaker.
The breaker of sorrows, which sounds like a nickname for a fantasy character.
And it was one of those kind of bars that you write about, because it was a horrible bar. It was it was super narrow, and it had the bar that took up 2/3 of the width, and then there were stools. So if you came in on a busy night, you had to squeeze past everybody at the bar to get into the back, which had a little more space. Yeah. And it was always like almost condensed sweat dripping from the ceilings because it was just so full and crowded and humid. And we went there every Friday night. When I moved back to Australia, I had a huge going away party where we took over Sorgenbrecher.
Nice.
I
had this how to explain how Hamburg and Reeperbahn in particular, especially when you don't go into the fully tourist places. Like I had this encounter at Clochard, which was so fun. This dude started paying drinks for me, just giving me drinks, which is dangerous. In Clochard, you only drink closed bottles because it's that kind of bar. And he's like,
I'd be very suspicious of any dude that wanted to buy me alcohol on the Reeperbahn.
No, he was cool. And his life story was that he grew up and he started work as a bricklayer and then became an MMA fighter. And now he's living on constant disability because he got beat up so bad as an MMA fighter. And that's the kind of people you meet in those bars.
That's true. Man, shit really goes down in Germany, huh?
It's an interesting place.
It's super fascinating.
The Reeperbahn thing, there's also a similar thing in Amsterdam that is also...
Yeah, absolutely.
I heard they pass out drugs like candy out there.
Although the Reeperbahn, the interesting thing about the Reeperbahn is it's such a mix. It's not just a red light district. There is a street.
That's the Herbertstrasse.
The Herbertstrasse comes off of close to the Reeperbahn. And that is a closed street where they only let men in. And they actually have walls built on the street at either end. And they have bouncers. And they won't let you in if you're not a man. And then it's just windows with women in them. Like, that's the full-on hardcore red light district part. But the Reeperbahn is this weird mix. Like, everybody goes to the Reeperbahn. It's not just... Like if you're looking for a prostitute, like everybody in Hamburg goes to the
bars
Reeperbahn.
And nightclubs and everything. It's
Friday night, Saturday nights.
Plate.
The Reeperbahn is just packed with people. Some are tourists, but a lot of them are locals, and it's just what you do.
What I always found interesting about what you just said, about the Reeperbahn, is that you have both the tourist part, but there's places and you take a corner shop. I went to for a pizza in a corner shop. It's like this one dude who looks like a fucking criminal and probably spent 20 years in prison for something violent, and he's running this 10 square meter if you're lucky pizza shop and stuff, and it has these local aspects, but it's also incredibly gentrified by now.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting though, Reeperbahn is track, but also street, and Reeper means rope, which is
Lipa means roper. It's
Roper, yes.
the person who makes rope.
Yes, and it's the street where all the people, Hamburg being you're close to the sea and having a big port.
It's a harbor.
That's Hamburg. That's being that was the street where everyone was making rope, and that's where the name comes from.
Hamburg is not just a harbor, but it's always been a huge shipwright city. It's where they build ships, and it still is. I mean, there's still huge docks. We used to sit. There was a cafe I really liked, which is right on the river.
Yeah.
And we used to sit there at night and watch across the river all of the welding, because you'd have these huge ships, these huge container ships or cruise ships, and they'd be in for repairs, and you just see these little sparks across the river with like 20, 30 welders on the ship all working at once. Yeah. It's really cool. And yes, Chaudia, it is very sexist.
It is,
but it doesn't mean it's not to say that you can't go to the Puff as a woman. There are lots of them all around the Reeperbahn, but Friedrichstrasse specifically, which is the women in windows street, not Friedrichstrasse, Herbertstrasse, you can't go there as a woman. It's just the way it is.
It is still fucked up. Chaudia is definitely right. It is sexist. Because what about all the lesbians who are into prostitution?
Or all of the female tourists who just want to see Herbertstrasse, which is what most people like. I've wandered down Herbertstrasse just because I've got a lot of like somebody visits you, comes to Hamburg.
Is there anyone at this point actually going to solicit sex from sex workers in Herbertstrasse? I doubt it.
Me and some friends have actually stopped at the window and chatted with some of these girls, but we were never like shopping.
Women, not girls.
Most of them are girls, unfortunately. But
that's
just
messed
sort of
up.
Well, I mean, they're not like 11.
Oh my!
But
they just letting them?
A lot of them are quite young.
It is definitely a problem, though, and it's fucked up because you take something like sex work in its probably, not its most brutal version, but you take that and commodify it as a tourist attraction. There's certainly a conversation to be had about that.
Eva asks, how do you know if a brothel has men or women? Around the Reeperbahn, they have big signs that say gay sex. So that's one way to know that they have
that's
men.
A good one. No.
The brothel that was downstairs from where I used to live in Seilerstrasse,
which is just another version of saying
just another word for Rope Street.
Yeah.
Had a big sign on like I had to go into my building, basically right past a big sign that said gay sex. So yeah, it's pretty easy to find them. They want to make sure that the right kind of clients are coming in, I guess. And yes, also what Ron says, like when you're my age, like almost everyone's a kid.
Yeah, but also you don't call a 20-year-old male a boy, you call them a man.
Oh, I do.
I would totally call a 20-year-old man a boy.
I'm 22.
But here's the thing:
it's totally a boy. Look at that.
To be fair, like I see what you're saying, Kat.
Totally,
you're right.
Yeah,
it is definitely a form of like it's patronizing. Is the point? I get it.
Exactly. That's me. Yeah, it was actually easy, Daniel, to give people directions to my flat. It's like, come up Seilerstrasse. Seilerstrasse was also only 2 blocks long. It was a weird street. It was dead end at both ends, basically. And once you're on Seilerstrasse, just look for the giant yellow glowing sign that says gay sex. That's my building. Yeah. It was pretty easy to find. And the most legendary bar around the Reeperbahn is Rosie's. And Rosie's was right at the end of my street. Rosie's is another one of those really grotty, filthy, ugly places, but they had the cheapest beer around the Reeperbahn, and everybody went there.
I don't know if they were cheaper than Clochard. Clochard sold beers for €1.
Yeah, that was. I mean, back in the day, it was Rosie's. Yeah. You'd get an Astra for €1.
Yeah, same for Clochard. Clochard, one of those situations I had with Clochard was like I was there with a bunch of people. Most of them were Australian, and there's certainly nothing that will come up later again. And one of them came back outside. So they have a balcony where people could sit, and he came out. I was like, "Guys, we gotta leave. We gotta leave." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "I just put €50 in the jukebox because they had like an old style jukebox. It's a punk and hard rock place.
€50.
He put €50 in the jukebox, and we're like, so what? I mean, that's stupid, but what? It's like, I only selected Running Wild, which is one German band that only writes pirate songs.
Okay.
And 10 minutes later, 5 Australians were jumping up and down on a table until it broke.
Yeah, that sounds like a typical night out on the Reeperbahn. Does anyone else have any interesting things to tell us? Because I feel like Raph and I are dominating with stories about German bars.
Well, I've been to bars in Oklahoma, so in my 2 years that I've been able to drink, so that's been fun. Went to a karaoke bar once.
That's one of those fascinating things about the US is like, you guys get the right to drive at 16, and then you have to wait for 5 more years to get a DUI, right?
Yeah, it's bullshit, man.
Americans should be able to get DUIs earlier.
I think it's like, I think it's just interesting how different countries have different perspectives, and I know I'm the booktuber that gets drunk and whatnot, but the way that alcohol is ingrained in German, grained, did you get that? The way that alcohol is ingrained in German, Czech, Polish, whatever, like Central European culture compared to other places, I think is super interesting. Because here it's totally normal for some people, at least, to have like a beer during their lunch and then go back to work. And I'm pretty sure that doesn't fly.
Eva says that she could be your mother, Britain. So maybe you want to ask your dad if he knows her.
Oh my god! I think I know my mother. No, but
Sorry.
There was one time I stayed out from until around. I bet this is a day in the office on your guys' part. It's probably happened to you, but I stayed out till around 5 in the morning, so that wasn't fun because our driver ditched us. The friends and I were bar hopping.
I won't tell you anything about how late I've stayed up.
20, I think like 36 hours is sort of like, and I don't want to go into like all the dumb things I've done, but
yeah, we haven't got time for that.
Exactly, because I do dumb things all the time. As I said, like, I think it's interesting how drinking culture or bar culture is different from place to place. And Germany has this weird casual drinking culture where people are constantly drinking, sort of. But you don't have that dedicated, let's go to the pub kind of situation, because every place is basically a pub and you're okay to drink a beer.
It also, I've found it also makes a real difference how long pubs are open.
Yeah.
Like in Britain, I mean, things have changed, but in Britain, I remember when I went out with friends in London, it was basically like go out as early as possible, get drunk as quickly as possible, because the pub's going to throw you out at 10.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? 10? And it used to be the same way in Australia. And what changed it in Sydney, what changed it was the Olympics.
Yeah.
When Sydney hosted the Olympics, they were like, everybody from the world is coming here to party and watch the Olympics. We can't throw them out of pubs at 10. So they changed the laws that a lot of places could stay open until I think midnight or 1. And some places could get a special license and stay open all night. And that totally changed the way people drank in Sydney. It's like you don't have to rush it. You don't have to get like 6 big beers into you in the first hour. Because you're going to get thrown out, you can relax and take your time and hang out until 2 a.m. or whatever, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. That last week, I went, for that the birthday thing with my friend and whatnot, I left the bar at like 5:30.
Oh my god.
That's kind of when they closed, at 5:30 in the morning. And that's
In
normal for Germany.
Yeah.
in Belgium, amongst like a lot of people my age who go to like parties and stuff, there is also this thing called pre-drinking. So you go
I
to
fucking hate that.
What is
someone's
that?
house and you get drunk before you go to the party, and
Get
then
drunk before you go to a party. Yep.
yeah, and then you arrive at the party and you're all drunk because you drank beforehand, and it's cheaper.
In Germany, it's called the German word for that is Vorglühen.
Vorglühen, which is sort of before glow. It's like getting a glow on before.
Yeah, exactly. To sort of pre-glow. It's here's the thing. All what these things do is kind of put an emphasis on drinking alcohol that I don't like. It's like, yeah, I drink. I like beer. It's fine. But it's not why I go to a bar.
It's not something
It's not why I go to a party. It's something that happens, but it's not. The goal is not to be drunk. The goal is to have a good time. And if alcohol is involved, that's fine. If I go to a party, I just drink water all day and have a good day. That's also brilliant. I don't need to get and that, like, sort of turning it into sort of a process. And I'm like, that sucks in a way, you know?
I don't. Like, I like to drink a beer from time to time because Belgian beer is awesome.
Belgian beer is great.
Mm-hmm.
I love.
You have a
Belgian
beer called Hoegaarden, and you're not ashamed of it. And
Hoegaarden is not the best one.
I know it's not a good beer. I'm just like, you have a beer called Hoegaarden.
Not those kind of
We
hoes.
pronounce it Hoegaarden, but okay. But
I know. And it comes in these like weird special glasses that are hexagonal.
every beer has its own glass.
I know.
Yeah.
And then you have these people who get really pedantic about it and who want the right glass, and then you end up with 50 different glasses because that's how it is.
Germans are like that, but only with Weizen. I've actually had Germans get really angry at me because I was drinking Weizen beer out of the bottle, or I was drinking it in a normal, like, pint glass like this one.
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, you can't do that. You have to have a proper Weizen glass." So also, like you said, I have bought Weizen glasses just for pedantic German guests.
I have never in my life
me,
bought a beer glass. They're all stolen from bars all over the globe.
We know that you also primarily drink out of bottles. So
that's the thing. Is like I like these because they have beautiful.
Brian asks, do they drink Jägermeister in Germany as a digestive?
No,
not really. No, Jägermeister's popularity is an American marketing thing. Like, I don't know anybody that like intentionally drinks Jägermeister in Germany.
Yeah, so here's the thing: we have like herbal liquors that are drunk as digestive. They're just not Jägermeister because Jägermeister is way too sweet and has way too much sugar.
It's the worst of the herbal digestive things.
What is so interesting about the Jägermeister thing for me though is how they changed marketing. Because when I was a kid back in the olden days, Jägermeister was something that old people drank.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it became cool and hip, and they changed the logo to this more like sketched out version of the stag's head instead of the actual like old logo, which was
the old one was nice, sort of engraving, very detailed. Yeah, it's nice.
It's just interesting to see how they changed marketing and changed the whole thing to become suddenly this cool thing that everyone drinks. And I'm like, I remember when this was something that only 70-year-olds drank sometimes.
Foster's. Ron mentions that Foster's is not Australian for beer. Like, Foster's, they have the best marketing and distribution of beer in the world, because if you walk into a bar, I actually did this once. If you walk into a bar in Sydney and order a Foster's, like I did that once, and the bartender said, "Are you sure?" He was like, we have so many really good beers. You don't really want a Foster's, do you? And
That's
I
the
was like,
most polite Australian I've ever
yeah,
heard about.
yeah. No, I mean, like, and the other thing is, Foster's. What they do is they license the branding. So the Foster's you get in Germany is brewed in Hamburg, which is the biggest brewing city in Germany. And it is brewed to a recipe which is nothing like the Australian Fosters. So it's actually probably all right in Germany compared to the Australian Fosters, because Germans are actually pretty good at beer. But there are so many better beers in Australia. I would never drink Fosters.
Oh boy, Heineken.
The absolute last
Heineken
thing
is
you would
not beer.
ever...
Heineken is just dishwash.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Heineken is for whatever reason, I go to Greece a lot because I like Greece. It's a great country. I love it. They are like the main beers they sell are Heineken and Amstel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Amstel? Who's heard of Amstel outside of, well, Athens,
tourist
I guess?
locations. The only places you get Amstel are big tourist locations. It's just not what you... But I mean, all of these beers are much better than the standard American beers. In Australia, we call American beer making love in a canoe. It's fucking close to water.
Dishwasher.
Terry Pratchett uses that joke for coffee in one of the Discworld novels when he calls like, "This is making love in a canoe coffee if ever has seen one."
Yeah,
I'm not much of a partier drinker, so I'm just kind of sitting here awkwardly.
I have a fun Heineken story. My parents went to Scotland, I believe, and they were in a place, and they ordered a local beer, and they served Heineken.
The most local of all beers, because everyone brews Heineken at their home somewhere.
Yeah, it's basement beer in Belgium. So should we maybe sprint again?
Yeah, I need to learn more about Ezra Taft Benson.
I need to learn more about... Actually, this has been really, really interesting reading the appendices to June. It's the ecology of June, the religion, and he has some super interesting things to say about religion. I'll read you a quote before we start.
You know what's interesting? Those appendices are not included in the audiobooks. I know they exist.
Oh, that's
I've read them once, but they're not in there.
So about the religion, and there's a super interesting history of religion leading up to the point we're at in June. There's a whole bunch of people that got together like 1,000 years ago before June to agree on what religion should be and to sort of find the similarities between religions. And one of the guys after this big project said, religion must remain an outlet for people who say to themselves, I am not the kind of person I want to be. It must never sink into an assemblage of the self-satisfied. I was like, I love that. That is super smart and interesting. And let's sprint.
Before we leave,
Yeah.
Ron, I get the reference, and it's my go-to Halloween disguise is to just wear a blue ribbon and scare people because my surname is Pabst.
Yeah, I bet you've heard a lot of jokes about Pabst.
Not in Germany. No one knows about Pabst PBR in Germany.
No.
But it's still it's the most
exist.
scary thing. I'm a Pabst blue ribbon, and fuck you, it'll scare you, I hope.
So mute yourselves and let's read.
I will probably jump off. It was lovely seeing you all.
Likewise, thanks for joining us.
It was good seeing you.
Talk to you later.
See you later.
Catch ya.
Hello. How was everyone's reading? I was reading mostly the glossary of Dune, which is a pretty serious little bit of world building all by itself.
Well, I am cutting through Cormac McCarthy's The Crossing.
Oh,
AKA McCarthy doing Jack London.
I'm still not sure what I will think of McCarthy when I eventually get around to reading some.
I like McCarthy, but McCarthy's, all kinds of things, right? There's a huge difference between The Road and Blood Meridian and The Passenger and The Crossing and All the Pretty Horses and whatnot. There's all kinds of McCarthy in there.
He's someone who I know that, like, or at least I think that their writing has extremely little in common, but he makes me think of John Williams. Because, like, every John Williams book is nothing like every other John Williams book. They're all extremely different. Stoner and Augustus have nothing in common, basically.
I think, so my perspective on McCarthy is that what McCarthy does really well is this very biblical feeling. Like a biblical atmosphere without ever talking about actual, Christianity, but this sort of weird feeling of going back to the things that kind of start religions.
Okay.
And doing that, which is incredibly toxically masculine and toxically American at the same time, which is why I think McCarthy is so popular in specific, areas, and why he is such the epitome of American literature of the 20th century.
Okay.
But he's really good at using words. He's incredibly good.
At using words.
Also, I should warn you, in some of his stuff, he has just full dialogues in untranslated Spanish.
Cool. I unfortunately never learned to read Spanish.
I just translate on my computer. It's not really that big of a hassle.
Yeah, I don't know. I read parts of Watchman on the Tower, which is a book about Ezra Taft Benson.
Thought you said Watchman.
Never heard of.
Whom you may know as the Secretary of Agriculture under Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Or you may not know him.
He's also he also was
case.
the first president, prophet, and revelator of the Church of Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ from 1985 to 1995.
So there we make the connection to Raf's current reading life.
He might also have been an ardent supporter of and member of the John Birch Society.
Ooh.
And almost was the running mate of George Wallace, whom you may remember as the guy who tried to run as president for the United States of America on a deliberate segregation billing.
Oh, awesome.
My point is, Ezra Taft
sounds like
Benson,
a fine man.
He's a fascist and conspiracy theorist and everything like that, and he had an important part to play into how the Mormon Church changed over the 60s and 70s.
What's his name again?
Right,
Ezra Taft Benson.
Wow, he sounds like a quality human being.
Yeah.
I think he probably was a really nice dude to hang out with if you were like cis hetero white.
Well, I mean, John Birch Society, that's like the real fucking crazy Republicans in America.
Yeah, I know. He really that's like the thing that the John Birch Society, Robert Welch claimed that Dwight D. Eisenhower was a communist sleeper agent.
Oh my
and
God.
Ezra Taft Benson was part of the John Birch Society that was run by Robert Welch and worked as a fucking Secretary of Agriculture under Dwight D. Eisenhower.
I'd also like to quickly point out, you can, like myself, be a cis hetero white man and not get along with people like that.
Yeah,
I don't think I would probably
Impossible.
enjoy having a beer with that guy,
Well, he wouldn't have a beer.
regardless of my cis hetero whiteness. You know,
Not every cis hetero white male is made equally, Matt. So we're all
exactly.
different.
Hashtag not all cis hetero white men.
No, but my point is, from what I can tell, he's probably a super nice guy if you fit in his world with you.
Sure.
If you don't, and
Yeah,
if you don't argue with him, he's probably going to be really nice to you and kind.
If you were a right wing
everything.
nut job like him, you would probably enjoy having a beer with him.
No, I think it goes beyond that. Well, he won't have a beer with you because it goes against the word of wisdom.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I remember I had a big trip in America once. I was between jobs and I was like, I want a real break. So I went to the Southwestern America and I hiked around Utah, New Mexico, Arizona for a month. And I had hiked into Bryce Canyon. You have to get a special license and you can hike into Bryce Canyon. You can camp in like the bottom of the canyon. And I hiked down into Bryce Canyon. I camped there for 2-3 nights, hiked all over the place in the canyon, and hiked back out. And I was dusty, exhausted, hadn't seen humans for days. And I went to the nearest town and I was like, what I need is a pizza and a beer. I desperately need all the pizza and all the beer. So I went to a place where I could get pizza and I ordered a beer and the guy looked at me.
Whoops.
And he was like, you know, you're in Utah, right? And I was like, I actually said to him, I grabbed my head and said, oh, fuck, you're Mormons, aren't you? And he was like, I personally won't take that personally because I'm not actually a Mormon, but yes, it's a Mormon state and it's hard to get beer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I cursed my luck at being in Utah.
What I find so interesting about the word of wisdom is that it also says that people should only eat meat if necessary and in dire circumstances. And Mormons, because they made that alliance with a lot of, from what I can tell, with a lot of like right-wing conservatives, are really into eating meat now. Which the religion, they could be fucking vegetarians right now and claim a religious reason for being so, which would be cool. But they're not, because they chose not to.
Because their right-wing steak eater friends wouldn't be happy with them, I guess.
And that's sort of what I learned over the last 2 weeks of reading way too many Mormon books. Books about Mormons. It's like, and I try to. Here's the thing: is like I'll try to approach this as neutral as possible, and they can believe whatever they want, and I'm good with that. What I see is you have a group of people that start a religion that is incredibly American at the time, in like 1830s upstate New York, which is where everyone starts their religion. And from there on, because they are
everyone starts their religion. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of religions that didn't start there. You mean American religions?
Have you guys ever heard of what is called the Second Great Awakening? Have you looked at upstate New York in
I've heard
the
of it,
1820s, the so-called burnt over district?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happens in that time. That's where Joseph Smith comes from.
The burnt over district is a super interesting place.
It's absolutely it's wild and it's fascinating, and that's where Mormonism starts as well. My point is, the religion is great. I don't have any problem with Mormonism as a faith, whatever. What I see is that because of the religious persecution they face in the early decades, there's a need within Mormonism to appeal or to be accepted as American mainstream, which makes them choose the wrong thing every single time they have a chance. Early Mormonism is very feminist. Early Mormonism is very anti-racist. And whenever they get under pressure, they choose to be the wrong thing.
More assholes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, which is why in the 60s and 70s, in the 20s they become very progressive. They send people. They turn Brigham Young University into a university. They ask external professors to come and actually teach there. They send students to Chicago for Trinity College to learn theology there and stuff like that. And then in the 30s and 40s, as an opposition to FDR and the New Deal, they become incredibly conservative. And then in the 60s and 70s, they align with Jerry Falwell and the moral majority, which is so fucking wild. And that's sort of where someone like Ezra Taft Benson kind of comes in, right? You have within Mormonism, which is super weird and has, Heavenly Mother, which is a female goddess figure, as well as a male god. And you have the Relief Society, which is the women's organization. And Phyllis fucking Schlafly,
oh dear,
convinces the then president of the Relief Society in the late 70s to join her cause, and that's how they swing and change Utah's acceptance of the Equal Rights Amendment. And they go back and they change it into the other side, and that's part of how Mormonism, because it yokes itself to the evangelical right in a lot of ways in the 70s and the 80s. And that's something that is super interesting to me to see, because that it changes the culture, and it's something that the church is struggling with to this day, because you have young people who, are religious and believe that stuff, and they're good. They also believe that, queer people should have a right to live and, and stuff like that.
Yeah, being a progressive Mormon, a young progressive Mormon has got to be difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's sort of like the same thing you see in the Catholic Church, right? Is you have a hierarchical structure that is incredibly ossified, and it's coming up against, the culture changing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't want to turn this into the Mormon cast.
And I don't want to interrupt Raf's Mormonism lecture, but I think I'm going to call it for the evening. We've been doing this for over 3 hours. It's late here in Germany. Not 5 a.m, leaving the pub kind of late, but late enough that old people like me would like to relax a little and go to bed soon. So
you also have a cat that might wake you up at 5 a.m, so
yeah, well, she's been good lately. It's more like 7:30 these days.
I don't know why. 8 hours of sleep right now. That's good.
I have no idea why. I really don't understand why. A month ago she thought that 5 a.m. was necessary, and at the moment it's like 7:30 is not so bad. I don't get it, but whatever it is, I'm happy about 7:30. I'm much happier about that than I'm about 5.
And I've already found 4 of my knitting needles. I just need a 5th, and then I can start on Tori's beanie.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing it in her future videos. Thank you all for joining. Tomorrow. You have classes tomorrow.
The new semester starts. I only had 1 week off.
It's so insane that you guys only get 1 week. I told you that before. It's like, what?
One week between semesters seems like maybe
February?
not enough.
When are you guys supposed to, wear balaclavas and throw rocks against the government?
That was in May.
Okay.
Which is technically also not that good, because in June there's exams. So do that on your study break, maybe? I don't know.
Right. Don't have time to bring down the government. That's why they don't give you long breaks.
So that's plenty of time.
Okay. Well, you can bring down the government in the summer. It's a good time for it. Yeah.
Because everyone's off and doing something.
Yeah, and you can be out in the weather, wearing shorts and throwing rocks, and yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you for everybody on screen who joined. It's always nice to not actually be sitting here alone. But also, thank you very much to everybody who joined in the comments. That is also always a pleasure. I am really, really happy with the Sunday Pub. It was an idea I came up with where I was like, this could be me on screen by myself and 5 people in the chat. And that would be slightly disappointing. And it's been the opposite. There's been a really nice sort of regular crew who's been joining pretty regularly, and then random drop-ins and stuff as well. I love it. It's a highlight of my week every week. And I look forward to seeing you all again next Sunday. Take it easy, everybody. Have a lovely week.
Super Bowl this evening, so